And welcome back to State of the Union. I'm Jake Tapper. We're less than 2 months out from the Iowa caucuses, believe it or not. And last night, former President Trump urged his supporters in Iowa to help him seal up the nomination in mid-January. But with a fierce battle underway between two of his rivals, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says he is still the one that has the best chance to challenge and defeat Donald Trump. And he says Trump's attacks against him prove it. Joining us now from Iowa is Republican presidential candidate Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida. Thanks so much, Governor. I want to start on Israel. President Biden is out with a new op-ed this week. He calls for a two-state solution, ultimately. Even before the October 7th attacks, you have cast doubt on President Biden's calls for a two-state solution. How do you think this should end, then, for the Palestinians? Do you think Israel should occupy the Gaza Strip? What's your view of what comes after Hamas is defeated?
Well, I think the fatal flaw with the push for a so-called two-state solution is that the Palestinian Arabs have never embraced Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. I mean, that ultimately, when Israel's made offers in the past, that was the sticking point. And so you don't want a two-state that ends up just being a stepping stone to the destruction of Israel. I don't think that should be contingent on any aid that they pursue that. And I would also note, Jake, for many, many decades, people in D.C. said you're never going to be able to have relations in the Middle East between Israel and any other country unless you had that. And yet we saw under the Trump administration the Abraham Accords, where they were able to make peace with many countries in the Middle East, and probably would have ended up being able to do it with Saudi Arabia had we not had the October 7th attack. Now, going forward, I think Israel needs to do what it's best to defend themselves. I would note Gaza was not under Israeli occupation. They pulled out in 2006. They uprooted thousands of their own Israeli citizens and forced them to leave the Gaza Strip. And the idea was give the Arabs down there an opportunity to make something of it. And unfortunately, they turned to Hamas. And Hamas used money to build a big terrorist infrastructure and ultimately wage attacks for many years, and then the devastating October 7th attack. Israel cannot allow history to repeat itself.
Right, but what comes next? I mean, I think that you would agree probably that Israel occupying Gaza is not going to result in peace in the region. Do you think that there should be a Palestinian state where Gaza is?
Oh, I mean, I think that would end up becoming a hotbed of terrorism. I think we need to let Israel win this war. We should support them publicly and privately to actually finish the job. Because if you just do some glancing blows, Hamas reconstitute itself, we're going to end up in this same cycle going forward. And Israel's in a situation where they suffered the biggest attack on Jews since the Holocaust. You have an organization in Hamas that wants to wipe Israel totally off the map. This is not just some minor dispute. This is an existential threat to the survival of the world's only Jewish state. So I think they have to do whatever they can to protect their people and to make sure that this never happens again.
Something happened the other day that I wondered what you thought about, because you launched your campaign on Twitter, now known as X. And right now, major companies such as Apple and Disney are pulling their ads from X because Elon Musk openly endorsed this anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that Jews are conspiring to replace white Americans with minority immigrants. I wondered if you saw the comment and if you condemn it.
I did not see the comment, and so I know that Elon has had a target on his back ever since he purchased Twitter, because I think he's taking it in a direction that a lot of people who are used to controlling the narrative don't like. So I was a big supporter of him purchasing Twitter. I think they're obviously still working some stuff out, but I did not see those comments.
All right, well, let me just show you. So here's a post claiming that Jews are pushing dialectical hatred against whites and are flooding the country with hordes of minorities, and Elon Musk replies, "You have said the actual truth." He goes on to say that he's talking about the ADL and other Jewish groups are pushing replacements of whites. It's a lot of condemnation for singling out a specific religious group during this time of rapidly rising anti-Semitism. I know you've been very out front when you see anti-Semitism on the left. Is anti-Semitism on the right something that concerns you as well?
Across the board. And actually, I think in the advent of these attacks, the amount of anti-Semitism that we've seen has really surprised me. And I'm somebody that signed major legislation in Florida to combat anti-Semitism on college campuses, and yet what you've seen come out since then, and you have seen it on both sides. But I would say this, the difference is that on the left, that tends to be attached to some major institutional power, like some of our most august universities, whereas I think on the right, it tends to be, more fringe voices that are doing it, but it's wrong no matter what, and I don't think that we've seen anti-Semitism this bad in the world probably since the Second World War.
I don't know how fringe the voices are, to be completely frank. I mean, Elon Musk is the wealthiest man in the world, and we've seen some major conservative media figures, Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, and others pushing really, really hateful stuff, backing this nonsensical theories of white genocide, white replacement theory. And I would ask that major Republican figures like you use your voices as well to stand against it. But let's turn to another topic.
Yeah, but Jake, with all due respect, with all due respect on that, I mean, to have somebody who's like blogging and doing stuff like that, okay, that's an issue. But to compare that for how some of these most powerful universities in the country have responded to this, we have Jewish students fleeing for their lives because you have angry mobs, and yet they have not done what they need to do to protect the safety and well-being of those students. I have constituents in Florida whose kids don't even want to go to campus in the advent of this because of such a hostile environment. So I do think on the institutional side, you've seen this become part of a left-wing movement, a very significant pro-Hamas movement, and it is backed by institutional power.
Yeah, absolutely. Jewish students, just like Muslim students, black students, gay students, all students should feel safe on campuses, and the concern Jewish students have right now is very serious. I'm just saying, Elon Musk is a pretty powerful guy, and he's out there endorsing some pretty hideous anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, and I still haven't heard you condemn it.
Well, because I haven't seen it. I know you tried to read. I have no idea what the context is. I know Elon Musk. I've never seen him do anything. I think he's a guy that believes in America. I've never seen him indulge in any of that. So it's surprising if that's true, but I have not seen it, so I don't want to sit there and pass judgment on the fly.
Let's turn to President Biden this week at his summit, the Pacific Summit. He referred to Chinese President Xi Jinping as a dictator. Now, yesterday you agreed with that, but you also criticized personal diplomacy more generally. You said, quote, "You're not going to win these guys over with personal charm. I mean, these guys are killers," unquote. Just to be clear, you're calling Xi Jinping a killer?
Well, look, what's been happening to the Uyghurs, what's been happening in so many places in China. Of course, he's an authoritarian. Of course, he's a dictator. He's ruling the country with an iron fist. And I think that the summit was a big win for Xi in terms of the propaganda. You know, you had American business leaders paying $40,000 to be able to sit with him at dinner. He got a rousing ovation from a lot of American CEOs. I know that's already being played in China as an example of China basically being America's equal on the world stage. I don't think Joe Biden got anything of note out of this. I mean, they talk about cooperating for fentanyl as if China doesn't know the fentanyl is being sent to Mexico and into the United States. Of course they know. This is part of their national strategy to hurt this country. So I think it was a bust from Biden's perspective, and I think it was a win for Xi.